Okay. Welcome. Hey, caveman, is this going? Beautiful. Good. We might, the last 4 or 5 huddles, we have filmed it, and there's always been audio issues. It's, for whatever reason, we cannot film a huddle without messing it up. But tonight, I think is going to be our night, Ruthie. So we will have it archived. And don't let this spot where I'm standing make you feel crazy. There's a weird echo right here. Not when Peter, like where Peter stands, but right here. So if you hear an echo, I don't know. It's just the way this auditorium was created. So I'm going to pray for us. And then I want to jump right into what Ruthie has to share and what she wants to cover. And then whatever time you leave me with, I'll work with some of the remaining stuff. So let's pray. God, thank you so much just for another month where we can gather. The parents of this church, of middle and high school students. God, I still know of so many families that wish they could be with us for whatever reason, just can't and aren't able to. God, I pray that this recording reaches them and blesses them. But God, even now, as our middle and high school students gather upstairs, man, I was up there and it was packed and there was just a lot of energy. And I'm so grateful that they have a place where they can come in safety, where they have adults who love Jesus that will in return love them really well. God, I'm just so grateful for our teens here at our church, and I'm more grateful for their parents. And so God, now as we just turn our focus and our attention on you, God, I pray that you just bless this time together, that you give us great wisdom, and that you give us incredible insight as we just want to grow as parents so that we can love our kids, these kids that you have given to us on loan for just a very short amount of time. May we steward the time and these precious kids well. Thank you that Ruthie is with us, and just, good grief, the massive impact that she has had and is continuing to have on our church, and the huge ripple effects that she has had in countless families that have come through this church. So I pray this is a profitable time where you receive all glory and honor. Amen. Okay, real quick, 2 quick announcements, not even announcements. The first one is I just wanted to give you guys a recap of the winter retreat, which went really, really well. If you go to our Facebook page and Instagram page, there's some recap video that one of our students made. It's only like a minute or 2 long, but you can go on there and just kind of watch and see what God did. Very, very encouraging time. I was telling some parents over here, such an obedient group that went. Like, I think, like when you say go to bed, they went to bed. They were the ones that were on the first floor, I think went to bed.
Was that the teachers or the students? Right.
The teachers were in bed. And at one point I even heard a kid whisper, "Shh, don't wake up Tim, he'll be mad." And I was like, that's right. And I was like, no. But it seemed that they were on time. They were just full of energy and life. And it just seemed that God really united this group that went. So if your kiddo went, thank you for spending the money to get them there. I know it's not cheap, but so many good conversations have come about from that. One of the things that I love is Snowbird. The leaders that hung out with them, whether North Hills or Snowbird, kept a really good log of conversations and maybe things that we can take from the conversations that were had up there back home. And I think Snowbird just emailed me all of that stuff today. So I'll have Hope, my admin, kind of weed through, instead of like a mass email of everyone's stuff, like it's none of their business. Hope will go through and weed out your specific kid and then get that information to you, just to give you some helpful insight on what they covered and where our kids are at. I'll tell you, I went through some of it. Like there was a breakout session on LGBTQ stuff, and it was encouraging to see the authentic feedback, but in some ways it grieved my heart a lot. And we have great kids, but they were very, very honest. And I think it can give a real interesting perspective on what they are processing as teens and what they're getting inundated with the world. So just heads up, if your kid went, we're going to be working on that tomorrow and Tuesday to get it to you. The second thing we noticed was we had to do a lot of driving. So because of Corona, we had to go from our cabin and drive 2-3 minutes off campus to go to this bigger off-site covered place with a lot of heaters so that we could fit more because of the restrictions. And we noticed in the time of driving, our kids listened to awful music, terrible music. Like we would say, what do you want to listen to? And one kid was like, Juice World. I don't know what Juice World is. So I put in Juice World, look on my Spotify, and I'm like, no. And I went through and I listened to some Juice World, and it was just really, really, really crummy music. And I went around to our kids. I'm like, you listen to Juice World? They're like, yeah. I'm like, huh. So Corrine Dyer was also there. Caven, can you throw up that barcode image? Yeah, there should be a slide on there with a Spotify barcode. Hopefully, if you can find it. If Caven can find it, I wanted to put this barcode up that you can get with your phone. And it was going to take you to 2 different playlists. One playlist that our kids kept pointing us to with the music they listened to, which was just musically brilliant, lyrically just horrific. And it's also going to take you to a playlist of Christian artists that musically are doing the same thing, but are honoring the Lord with their lyrics. Cayman, do you need me to come back and find it real quick? Because if you guys all get out your phones, if you scan the barcode, your phone will take you right to it. Okay, see if that works. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. Is it working? Yeah. Great, okay. And I'll email you guys some links in the next parent email. We, just as leaders, we're just really burdened musically. And I get it. I remember some of the stuff I listened to growing up wasn't the best, but there are musically comparable artists that love Jesus that are making just as good, if not better, music. So, just wanted to give you guys a recap. I have a lot more things I want to cover, but I want to give Ruthie the bulk amount of time. Ruthie, the floor is yours. How long have you been on staff?
15 years.
15 years. Raise your hand if your kid has gone through Ruthie's ministry of kid stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much everyone, so you don't even need an introduction.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Ruthie. Yeah.
It is such a privilege to be here with you tonight. I love you and I love your kids. And as they grow, there are so many things that we are battling against in our homes. And one of the things that was really on my heart that we've been battling a lot in the last... Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I got 2 kids with marriage, a 13-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy. My husband had custody of them after his first wife left him and the children. And so he single-dadded for about 4 years before we got married. And so thankfully, he actually had been here at church, so I had a relationship already with these children, which made our situation just as good as it can be in that kind of a situation. So we were really thankful for how God blessed us in that way. So we had our 13-year-old girl who was just a mess because she'd never had a mom, really. And then our 6-year-old boy who was a Tasmanian devil, for lack of a better term. He was all over the place all the time. And he and I went through the terrible 2s together and the questioning 3s and 4s. and the, okay, I think I'm good, but can I push this boundary 5s, all within a matter of about 2 years. So we really bonded. He is now 14 and is in Alive right now. And he is hilarious and still a little bit of a Tasmanian devil. But he and I have a really great relationship. And so we're able to have lots of these hard conversations as he is into the teen years now, because we have a normal mom-son relationship in a lot of ways. And I'm really grateful for that because it makes parenting easier. So I have parented a teen girl, and now I'm parenting a teen boy, and then we have 2 younger, a 6-year-old, well, he'll be 6 on Tuesday, and a 2-year-old girl who thinks she's a teenager. So I have lots of experience with teenagers. Some smaller than others. This is a topic that just keeps coming up over and over as my husband and I are parenting. How we want for our children to grow up, being grateful, being thankful, being kind, being humble, not selfish, all the things that we want as parents and are called to do. We teach in the way. We teach when we're laying down and when we're walking in the way. And so as we do that, we are going to fight against a really big thing that Americans fight against, and that's entitlement. So Caedmon's got a great slide. Have we seen that face before? I've seen it in my house so many times. So it definitely is a huge thing that we battle against. So it's hard. Entitlement gets thrown around a lot. So it's hard to know whether your child is actually having the attitude of entitlement or if they're just having a selfish moment, okay? Because we all have selfish moments where we want what we want and we think we deserve it. So I thought it would be helpful for us to just kind of go through a list that can help us identify entitlement in our children. And it's not extensive. There are other things that point to entitlement, but this is a really helpful list that I actually found on the psychiatrist's website, interestingly enough, American Association of Psychiatry or whatever. Okay, anyway, so we're gonna do a little quick check here. And I know that's small, but we're just gonna go through it. Your child expects to be rewarded. So there's that expectation, that entitlement, like if I do something and I don't get a reward, something is wrong here, kind of attitude. Not interested in helping. So this is not like your kids playing on their Xbox time and you ask them to get up and do something. Oh, I'm not interested in that. Well, of course they're not interested in that. This is just in general, I don't care about helping anyone else around me. I will do my own thing for me only, kind of thing, okay? So it's a pretty consistent thing. Is most concerned about self, not really thoughtful of others around them, constantly just thinking about themselves. Again, we all have these selfish moments. This is, a consistent thing. Passing blame to others. Ooh, this is a big one. Consistently not being willing to take the responsibility for their wrongdoing or their wrong attitude or whatever it is, constantly blaming others. Yeah, well, you said, well, they did, okay? Constantly blaming others. Can't handle disappointment. My son would call this raging. Dude, why are you raging? Right? For sure, this is a huge one. Something doesn't go my way, I just lose it. Just cannot handle it. Needs bribes. So you can do this if I get this. Okay, needing bribe. Well, what is it? What's in it for me kind of attitude. Expects rescuing from mistakes or trouble. So it's kind of like disengaged from reality in the fact that you're going to get into trouble. There will be consequences for these things. Just this kind of just thinks, I'm going to get rescued from this. I don't have to pay for these mistakes or trouble that I get into. Feels like rules don't apply. There should be an exception for me because I'm me kind of attitude. And then constantly wants or asks for more, never satisfied, doesn't have that contentment, gratefulness with what they have. So, if we look at this list and we think about our kids, are there a few of these that are really consistently true of one or more of my children? Like, really consistently. Not just moments here and there, but like a consistent attitude of this. Is there one that just really stands out? Like it is like this flashing neon sign, like, oh, that is my kid. So we think about this, and we look at that list, and it's hard to think about that of our kids. Because we want them to be grateful. We want them to be content. We want them to notice others around them. We don't want them to have a prize for doing something right. Just doing something right in and of itself is the prize, right? As parents, that's what we want. And it's a godly thing to want, right? Absolutely. So now we want to know if this is us and we're battling this on one or more levels, what do we do? So here are some helpful things, and then we're going to talk, because you can't just like, okay, go away and do your things, moms and dads. Like, sometimes hearing other parents really helps. So I want to have some Q&A too. So hopefully we'll be able to get through our list. Okay, so next slide, one thing at a time, here we go. What to do about it? Eliminate unnecessary gift giving. Okay, so if your love language as an adult is gift giving, this is really hard. It's really hard because the way that you show someone you love them is by giving them a gift. Okay? So I'm not saying don't give your kids gifts. What I'm saying is it necessary? Is it timely? Or is it something that you're doing because you want to put a little in the account so that they will do what you ask them to next time? Does that make sense? I have a friend who, oh goodness, this has been probably 15 years ago. I wasn't even a mom yet. And I was like, okay, what's the deal? Like, every time you come home, your son says, did you bring me anything? It's like, where did that come from? Like, what's happening? Isn't seeing daddy enough? And he was like, I don't know. One time I brought him something just because I thought of him when I saw it in the store on my lunch break. And then the next day he's like, did you bring me anything? I was like, no. How about a piece of gum? You know, and it just became this thing where seeing daddy come home from work wasn't enough. He wanted him to have brought him something, you know? So that's kind of a silly, example, but sometimes it turns into a monster and we don't even realize it, you know? So unnecessary gift giving, there we go. Then the next thing that we can do is pass on your contentedness. Just like everything in our lives, it starts with us in parenting. Starts in our hearts first, and we pass it on to our children. So a game that I play with the little ones is, tell me one thing you're grateful for today. Because sometimes my 2-year-old, who thinks she's a teenager, says, Mom, I'm just sad. Really, seriously, already, I'm not joking. She did it today in church. Mom, I'm just sad. Well, Ella, why are you sad? I don't know. I just am. I'm like, okay. So let's stop and focus our minds on something that we are grateful for, something that Jesus has done for us, something he has given us, something, and before we know it, she's laughing and fine again. But it is a thing that that starts here in our hearts first, and then we pass on to our children in whatever way, shape, or form your family can do it, being grateful. Starts with us. So pass on your contentedness. Then, number 3, I love this one. Make chores and family contributions mandatory. Okay, you live in this home. We are a family unit. Family units work together. Mama cannot do it all. Daddy cannot do it all. We work. We take care of you. That's our job. You contribute to the family. And now here is like the thing with that. You choose in your home whether we do allowance. That's not bad. That's fine. Allowance is fine. Or if we pay for extra chores, okay, like you always have your 5 that you do every day. After you do your 5, if I ask you to do like our Beau, he's 14, for 3 years now, he has been washing the car every week. My husband says on whatever day it's not raining, these days especially, Beau, you need to wash the car today. Okay, so he washes the car. He gets $5 for washing the car. It's not much, but he's 14. He's saving for his own car, so it's great. And my car's clean, so it's fabulous. But that's an extra above and beyond. He doesn't get paid for emptying the dishwasher, doesn't get paid for taking out the trash, doesn't get paid for cleaning his own room, doesn't get paid for cleaning up his own granola bar wrapper from the den. Amen, sisters, right? Just clean up after yourself. Okay? So he doesn't get paid for those things. Those are family contributions. Those are things that he does because he is part of our family. Just like Jackson takes all the dishes to the sink. He's 6. He can do it without breaking any now. Yay! So it's a family contribution. That's mandatory. There are no other options. You live here, you contribute. All right? That's what you get. So setting that standard for your child really helps to combat entitlement. Well, Mom will just do it for me. No, Mom will not do it for you. You can take your own plate to the kitchen. You can pick up your own granola bar wrapper. Okay? All right. Then we have parenting with natural consequences. This is a hard one. It's hard as a parent to not just take something away because they've done something wrong. And I'm not saying that that's wrong either, because we definitely have that in our house too, where there are times when I say, Beau this, Beau this, Beau this. It doesn't happen. Okay. Then what's important to you is going to have to go until you can do this thing. Okay? A great natural consequence that my friend did was her son would repeatedly not take his dish to the dishwasher after dinner. Everybody took their own plate. He would repeatedly just refuse. He'd just get up and go and do his own thing. She'd call him, she'd ask him, all the things. So the next day at dinner, he didn't have a plate. He didn't have a fork because he was not willing to do the thing. It's a natural consequence. Okay, so if you're not going to take care of your plate, you don't get one. Well, what am I supposed to eat off of? Figure it out. Okay. And then he started taking his plate. Okay, so sometimes it takes once, sometimes it takes 5, sometimes it whatever. So you think about natural consequences in your world and what that looks like. It might not be the plate, but it might be something that they don't have because they're not willing to contribute. Okay, then the last one is stick by your rules. So I am so thankful for my husband, and I sing his praises every chance I get, because when I became mom of a 13-year-old and a 6-year-old who hadn't had a mom in the house for 4 years, he said, whatever she says, it's my voice telling you. So whatever she says goes. I don't care that she hasn't been your mom but 2 days. What she says goes. So don't come and ask me or tell me, Mom said da 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 da. Do I have to? Yes, you have to. Mom said it, so do it. So he wasn't willing to back down on that. He still isn't willing to back down on that. Just the other day, Beau had his phone in his room for whatever reason. He just had it in his pocket and he put it on his nightstand instead of bringing it to us, which is the rule. I saw it the next morning. I said, why is your phone in your room? What's going on here? He's like, I don't know, I just forgot. Okay, well, you can talk to Daddy about it. And Lee gets home and he's like, well, why didn't you just tell him that he's not supposed to do that? I said, well, I did, but your voice is stronger than mine at this moment in his life. He's 14. Mom's nails on chalkboard voice doesn't quite cut it sometimes with these things. We need dad's voice sometimes. So you and your spouse talk about what are our things, what are our consequences, what are we going to have be no option to contribute, like the mandatory chores, the whatevers. So you guys get on the same page, and then don't back down from that, both of you, and support each other in that. Sometimes I do need Lee's extra voice to say something. Sometimes I can just say it, and that's it. Done. No more. We are not talking about this anymore. So whatever it is, you choose and you don't back down because, and I say it all the time about poor kid, he probably hates it, but I say, I do not want for you to become a selfish, self-centered, egotistical adult who thinks the world revolves around you. Because guess what? It doesn't. So I don't want that to be who you become. So it is my job to teach you and train you now and have you experience these consequences and the problems that come along with being that way. So that when you get out there on your own, you're not that way. So that's about all I have as far as content goes. But I do want to know if you have questions, comments, encouragements for each other, any of that, because I feel like sometimes in a more like an open forum, we really hear things that are encouraging to us, because you're not alone. Like I said, I mean, how many times did I say, Bo, poor kid, you know? He's getting used all the time right now, as an example, because he's the current teenager.
I'm sure you're.
So it's just, I know, he's gonna be like, Mom, what did you say about me? Nothing, dear, nothing. So any questions or thoughts on any of this stuff? Oh, yes. As far as the disciplining goes and the sticking to what you decide, where that disciplining is coming from. Because listen, the entitlement attitude, I really have zero patience for it. Zero patience for it. So how many times do I say to Bo, out of just frustration and anger, right? So this that Tim is handing to you is just a little self-check of how am I disciplining, when am I disciplining, why am I disciplining, where is this coming from me as a parent, so that we can just kind of get on the same page as couples and figure out where we're coming from when we're disciplining. Thank you. So it's just for you. We can, you can, I feel like you'll probably have time to do this even maybe tonight before we leave, just to kind of go through and get a gauge of where we are with our disciplining and how we're doing that. That was a really helpful tool that Tim found. Okay, questions or comments about any of this? I know a lot of it is not new news, but again, like I said, you're not alone in this. This is a thing we combat as adults, so of course our teenager, who already is a little self-centered, because it's just the child development stage that they're in, just is. But that doesn't excuse it. So we want to combat. Questions or thoughts? It's okay if not. I just don't want to leave anybody. Good. Yes.
I'll just make a comment.
Yeah.
Like, my son is 16 and he's the last
Yes.
of 4. And I know you when you have your first couple young ones, you wonder about, like I can do the same with all of them.
Huh.
But I'm in that,
Right.
the last stage where sometimes I'm tired.
Tired.
To discipline.
We're so tired.
And the debating that you get where I just
Right.
give up and I'm just like, whatever.
Right. Right.
I'm just like over it, you know.
Absolutely.
And then of course my firstborn's like, well, you never let me do that.
Oh. Listen.
And I'm like, look at how big you turned out. We're struggling here. But I mean, that's just
Yes.
this is great, you know,
Right.
but just the
Right.
tired, like when you just, at the end of it, you're just tired of
Yes.
keeping on going.
Yes. Yes. Parenting is exhausting in all the worlds. Like you lose sleep with infants, and then you have like you're just exhausted running after them once they can walk. And then you have the teenage, like it's emotionally exhausting. For me, it's emotionally exhausting. Like, and mentally I'm like fried by the time it's time to go to bed. And so I get that, like you're just tired. So I would say go back to the list and find that one thing that screamed at you. Maybe there was nothing on this kid. On this one, he's the last one. He's perfect. And so I am the last of 6, and I turned out great. And I got away with everything. I tell my older siblings, not everyone needs 25 million spankings. Some of us just didn't need that much. Oh, goodness. So I totally get that. Like, just go back to that one. It's like, wow, and just get on the same page. And for us, it's a lot of sit-downs with Bo. Like, okay, let's sit down and talk about this. Like, where is this coming from in your heart? Because I'm not just throwing rules at you to throw rules at you. Son, I don't like enforcing rules. Why would I make up more? I don't like it. Why? Why would I do that to myself? Just today, our 6-year-old got a spanking, and Bo came into the room, and he's like, oh, that sounded like it hurt. Anyway, just whatever about it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, sometimes I said, but did you hear Daddy and me trying all of the verbal things first? Like, Jackson, remember, Jackson, you need to take a breath and calm down and use your words. Jackson, da-da-da-da-da-da. And did you see how he didn't respond to any of that? And then did you see what happened? Okay, then a spanking. So I said something about, like, it's our last, like, we don't want to just go give spankings. Like, we don't want to just yank the Xbox from you. Like, we don't want, he's like, you don't? Oh, I hate giving spankings. I hate giving it. So it's not what we want. But because we love you, this is what we have to do sometimes. And so just, that's an open and honest conversation with my 14-year-old. For him to get a perspective of, oh, Mom's not just being mean. There are reasons here. So maybe even just a conversation with him, because that always helps Bo. Like, he's always been the why kid. Like, as soon as he could say why, he is asked why. And so sometimes it's just even the teen needs to get on the same page with you. Like, come and join us in this. Like, we are a family. We are teaching you. Be teachable here. Work with me, not against me. Did you have something, Carol?
Experience with my son, who's 19, or 18, going on 19. He works at a fast food restaurant, or did. He said, Mom, I'm going to tell you, the worst people who come through our drive-thru are the middle-aged women. They were so entitled.
How about that?
Because it really was very
Wow.
So, I think, so are my kids getting their entitlement from me?
From me.
Are they getting from adults in their lives?
Right.
It was interesting.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And that really points back to whatever number that was. Pass on your contentedness. Because it does start with us as parents. Is my kid getting some of his entire... Am I complaining too much at my house? Maybe. Maybe I am. Maybe when my order's not right in the drive-thru, I complain a little too much. Yeah, that's great. I love those moments. A little window in.
Along the lines of the sheet, I've glanced through some of the questions, said, are you disciplining out of anger?
Sure. It's a good one to
We had
ask.
our first child, Bonnie Kay, 23 years ago.
23. She was one of mine,
I was
too.
passed on a piece of wisdom by Jim Bryan, and he said, you should never spank your child more than their age. So if they're 5 years old, they get 5 swats.
Okay.
And that just kind of is a safety valve
Sure.
for, I was able to get that. Isaac, that didn't work again.
19 squats, Isaac. I'm kidding. Yes. Yeah, that is good. And that's a really good thing. Like as you're looking through that sheet and you're thinking about what are our things going to be, maybe you already have some, maybe some are not working well and we need to revamp. And especially as your kids, so I have the 14-year-old at home, our almost 21-year-old is on her own. So we have the 3 in the home. So the one's like, he's big, like he's giant. I have to have him sit down if we're going to have a conversation because I don't want to be up like this. And so we have the 14-year-old and then we have the 6 and the 2 and they do what they hear, And so the foot in both worlds sometimes to me is like, okay, what's working with this age of kid that I've got in my house right now? Which one do I need to be doing with which one? So it's always good to have those, like bring it back to the safety valve and I don't want to just like lose it on my 14-year-old because he's arguing again, Mama has to have timeouts sometimes. So many times I'm like, I will be back and we will talk about this. Don't walk away. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because we are humans, parenting humans. There's a lot of room for mistakes. Good.
Just on the subject of where are they getting this entitlement attitude from? I feel like my husband and I are really modeling hard work just from our backgrounds.
Yes.
Nothing given to us, everything we have, we work for. I grew up in East Germany and we just work for it.
You just work.
So you have to be a hard worker. So I feel like we're modeling it all day long, projects going on at our house and whatnot.
Right.
So I think partly I'm attributing to just society at large, because there's an
For sure.
ongoing issue with that can be observed in general. But partly I'm also wondering if it is personality of the child, because out of 3, we have one very hardworking, one that is just determined to make it on her own.
Yes.
And she's doing her own thing. And then we've got a very entitled one, who's just like this.
All day.
And we're like,
Gimme.
why?
That's a really, really great thought. So sometimes it is the personality of a child, and sometimes it is just even their friends, who they're around, who they're hearing from, what they're seeing on, if they have social media, what they're seeing on social media, what they're being inundated with from our society, how much, because yes, in the same family, you can have the full spectrum of entitled not. And that modeling is it's flabbergasting to us too when we have this conversation. My husband works 60 hours a week. I work here and I school the kids. I mean, like, it's not like we just sit watching soap operas and eating bonbons here. We work hard and they see it. They've seen it since day one. And so that is so like, where is this coming from? What is happening right now? Selfish heart, what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're being inundated with. And then personality does actually really play a big role too. How they're wired, what gets them going, or what shuts them off can also be a huge one. Yeah, that's a really good thought.
Well, following that up, I mean, I work hard. I've made a lot of mistakes. I want you to work hard, and I don't want you to make as many mistakes.
Right.
So, because I've modeled it, and I'm trying to help, and you're being a brick, I'm angry. So it's not angry.
Sure.
It's not angry at him. It's like, why are you being so dumb?
This attitude is like,
Right. Yeah.
I have no box for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So my own, like, not understanding causes anger. and,
Sure.
like, I'm gonna pull my hair out,
Right.
and
Yes.
that's what we're battling right now, is like my own anger
Sure.
to, like, anybody else who talks to me like that.
I would fire them in a second.
So
They'd be gone.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
because you're related and my mom made you.
Right?
And you have to stay here.
I can't fire you. You're my kid. Right. We have this conversation in our home. You're not alone. You are absolutely not alone. And I think that I can handle a lot of things. I can handle the asking questions. I can handle the lots of things. But you question why you're not getting the iPhone that your friend, I'm sorry, what?
I mean, he likes the video games, but in the video
I got it.
games, he's in complete control.
Sure.
So then he unplugs from that, and
Right.
he is not in control anymore.
Right.
Because there's other humans in the world.
Absolutely.
And then there is there's an addictive quality
Yes.
of the video game that
Yes.
he's coming down off that high.
Absolutely.
And they all are.
They all are.
And I think I'm the same way. I'm coming down off of work high.
Right.
There's this control issue, and everybody's got testosterone.
Yeah.
So some of those.
That I don't have, but
But I
yeah.
think it goes back working on myself and then
Yes.
passing that on.
Yes, and that's such a good place to be, where you're recognizing that and then you're doing something about it. So when I come off my work high, not that I hire and fire around here, but I am kind of pretty much, I text so-and-so and say, this is where you need to be when, and they're there when, kind of. So we all have that, and I think that sometimes I have to physically unplug myself from that and spend some time. And I don't get time. When I walk in the door, the kids are immediately, mama, and so I have to make a space for that to happen. Because I do have to come off of that to be able to be in a good space mentally, emotionally, be listening to the Spirit instead of my own. I gave this kid everything he has. Mindset. Who is he to say to me? Yes. So I think we all have to come off of that, and you have to create that space to be able to do that and be in the frame of mind to lovingly and firmly not back down, and come at it from a space of, look, I have worked hard for everything I have, but I'm grateful for that. So you contribute to our family. Be grateful for what you have,
So should you take everything away and make him fill his room back up with stuff?
Okay, so I actually have a friend who did that.
Oh, really?
With their son. This is years ago. He's 25, now 24, something like that. So this is years ago. He was 12, 13, was just having a real entitled attitude all of a sudden, kind of going into his whatever, I don't know, growing up. And his mom and dad actually took everything out of his room while he was at school except for a bed and his clothes. Because those were the things he needed. These are the things you can have. She said it took him about 24 hours. Then he was like, I'm really sorry. I was being really a jerk, wasn't I? Yeah, you were. You really were. So that's in an extreme case, maybe, I don't know. I don't feel like that's where the punishment doesn't fit the crime situation. If this is an ongoing situation, we might need a little wake-up call. Okay, so I want you to realize how many things you have just because you are loved and so well taken care of here.
We have what we call peacetime negotiations, and he's all three of them are very engaged in the conversation.
Good.
And they understand it.
Yep.
But they immediately forget.
Sure.
So we're working on do you remember?
Yes, and tell me your ages again of your kids.
Almost 16.
Yep.
13 and 8.
Yes, 8, I knew. Okay, so just frontal lobe. They'll get it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, no,
But
I
it's
think it's
totally developmental. It's 100%. You're not doing anything wrong. They're not stupid. It's all good. They'll get it.
Said it would be they're I didn't fine. I started engaging mentally and getting my life together when I was 26. So I was like, oh.
Yeah.
That's only 10 years.
We got a lot of years. Hang in there. Absolutely. Good.
Now, I'm gonna say, just to say, is, Kelly and I, we work really hard, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna admit that I like playing video games myself, you
Sure.
know. I'm a
My
guy who likes
husband does
video
too,
games. I
yep.
grew up in the 80s, so I mean, 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
so
Nintendo.
I like to do that sometimes, but I mean, my kids have kind of gotten into that too,
Sure.
but we try to teach them, look, you want to do that, you've got to do the responsibilities around
Right.
the house, and,
Right.
you've got to be nice, and all
Yes.
this and all that.
Yes.
And we work hard. She works hard at
Yes.
home, and I'm
Yes.
working out there a lot of hours, and, and we try to model
Yes.
that disciplining yourself as being good hard workers and
Yeah.
all fitting together. We all have a part with our responsibilities, and
Yes.
it's so frustrating as a parent, and that anger just comes out
Yeah.
a little bit more than it should sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but you just get so frustrated because you're teaching them and teaching them
Yes.
what's right.
Yes.
And they still act out on a lot of that.
Right.
You remind them what to do. This is your responsibility.
Yes.
That's what we call chores responsibilities.
Yep. Good.
Like, you live here, you're responsible
very
for this.
good.
This is not a chore, you're responsible for
Like, you do
this.
this first. you play
Own
this.
it.
Yeah, like, this is
Yes,
your, we don't call them
good.
chores, they're responsibilities. You live here, you're human, you are
Yeah.
capable.
Right.
You pitch in, we all
Sure.
work together, this is your responsibility. And you're age
Absolutely.
appropriate.
Yes, of
Because
course.
we have a variety
Mhm.
of ages.
Yes, you do.
But there's
Yeah.
one in particular, hey, you need to go do this responsibility, that's a morning when, flat on the floor.
Right. It's the end of the world because we have to do our responsibility. Yes.
Like, this is not new.
Totally been there.
This is
Totally
not
been there.
new.
This is
You
not
know,
new.
and just do it.
I think that is like, that's so hard as parents. Like, how many times do I have to have this conversation with you?
Yeah, it's so simple
How
sometimes.
many times? And then I have to think back to all my child ed classes and my child development classes and say, you're going to have to do it at least 1,000 more times, Ruthie, for it to stick. Like, it's just what we have to do as parents. It's part of what God has called us to do is mold these messes,
And it's not
And-
necessarily just responsibility, it's being a helper. We are a family, we help, we
Yes.
look out for one another.
Yes,
We
look,
don't sit
paying
there and
attention to the others around.
Yes.
pass
Yes,
on blame.
right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Good.
And something that I also tell them, I said, do you think I want to cook every night? Do you think I want to
Right.
do laundry every day?
There you go.
Do you think I love to cook and I love to bake?
Sure.
And I don't really like doing laundry,
But-
but I do it because
That's my job.
that's what we do.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
do what you have to do.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes back to modeling and all of that we've talked about. Yes.
I was just something that I often think about when I do get frustrated with the repeating and
Yes.
not doing is I step back and be like, okay, I'm a child of God. We know all the things that we're supposed to be doing all the time for God. And we don't, and we think every day, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then I don't.
Yes.
So it's kind of like we're the children to our Father.
Right.
And He's having the same
Yes.
frustration.
Absolutely.
So we have to, just
Absolutely.
continue to have,
Yes.
love our children, and
Yes.
continue to work with them, and
Yes.
repeat ourselves.
So
many
true.
times, because we're the same.
So true. We wander. I'm a sheep. I need the shepherd to bring me back again over here, Ruthie, over here. And just, And if you think about a child, like a little child, like my 2-year-old who thinks she's a teenager, there are so many parallels to my 14-year-old. Like she does something over and over and over and over. It's how she learns, like just doing something. Like right now she's into writing her name. Okay. So she's writing her name on every single piece of paper that she can possibly find in the house, Mama, I write my name. Mama, I write my name. E-L-L-A, E-L-L-A, all over and over. It's how she learns. I'm like, good grief, I'm going to have to throw away a lot of papers because you're using them all, like for E-L-L-A, and that's all that's on the paper, nothing else, but it's how they learn. And so if we can equate that, and point back, this is how I am with my Heavenly Father. Like, I need this over and over and over instead of why am I having this conversation? That's great. It's a great, great perspective. Love that reminder. Okay. Tim's standing there eyeing me. So, yeah.
I was just gonna share something really quick. A friend of mine helped me. I was really fighting with Grant because I'm extremely responsible and I was a teacher before. So I loved my system. And I couldn't keep him on a system. He's homeschool now. He would always be doing different stuff and he'd forget, like, what am I doing next? And he would seriously, at the age when he's at 12, just a lot of wasting time. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
You know? And I wanted him to be doing things with purpose, but I asked him on fight with him. So I did a list of, let's do this at this time, you know. And then I said, all right, this is my idea of what a day might look like for you. I want you to take ownership and you decide how you think it should look.
Yes.
And once he wrote it out himself, he's doing so great. Like that was the way he wanted to do it. He took the ownership of it.
Amen.
And he's got his little dry erase marker and his protective sheet, and he just goes through it. Now, some days I have to remind him, get that sheet out, dude. Where's your sheet?
Right.
So
We're
he gets
scatterbrained.
that right, and
Go back to
how
the
many days do you have to say, get that sheet out? But I would
So
say
many.
3 out of 5 days, and he's doing it. And it's really helped a lot,
Right.
and I think the confidence level for
Yeah.
him has been beautiful that he's
Yes.
taking that because
Yes.
he's taking the ownership of doing it himself instead of me, because he wants that independence, but he's not quite ready for it all yet.
Right.
So he's taking the ownership, he's doing it, I haven't told him, blah, 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 blah. That was what you came up with. Oh, okay, well, that didn't work today, then
Go back to the drawing board. Yeah.
New
I love that. I love that. That's a great middle step. Like you said, like he wants that ownership, he wants that independence, and he's not quite there because he's still scattered. So that's perfect. That's a perfect middle ground. And I think really with most things, not just with school, with most things we can do that with our kids as they are growing up. Like having them take ownership of it makes a world of difference. A world of difference. And I have found too, even just a thank you goes a long way with my 14-year-old. It's not that he expects the thank you, but when I see that he's done something and I hadn't told him to do it, like he just did it because, I'm like, Bo, that was really thoughtful, thank you. He's like, perks up a little bit. Yeah, I was thinking about Mom when I did that. Like I have shoulder issues. I played the violin for about 30 years, and so I've got real weird things that happen with my shoulders. And I had one, and it usually lasts a couple of days. I had one that lasted for 16 days. I could barely, by the end of the day, I was like, okay, can you just prop my shoulder up on something, please? It was just killing me. And I couldn't find my heating pad, looked everywhere in the house for it. He's like, Mom, I'm gonna find your heating pad. I went and found it in a random cabinet that I hadn't even thought to look in. And he found it and he brought it to me and he got it all ready for me. Here you go, Mom. Bud, thank you. That was really thoughtful. That was a contribution. I noticed Mom needed something and did it. And he just the other day, he's like, Mom, your shoulder's not hurting anymore. I haven't seen you use your shoulder pad or your heating pad. I was like, you're right. It really feels so much better. He's like, good. So just, pulling them in, helping them find ownership of things and just noticing it sometimes it really goes a long way with our kids. Yeah.
One thing we've recently started doing with ours, we've got 4, they're very different ages.
Mm-hmm.
We've had, competition stuff since our daughter came home that added a whole nother dimension.
Yes.
And so one thing we've recently started doing, because it was all of them, how does this help me? Everyone for themselves.
What's in it for me? Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, this is ridiculous.
Yes.
So we started, at night, we started watch your siblings.
Yes.
Find something today that you can say to encourage them at something that they did. Yes. And then at night we sit down and we go around and they say one thing, the sibling next to them, because we can't do all of them, do all 3.
Right.
Just watch all of them because you don't know who you're going to be sitting next to that night. One thing to try and help them to look outside of themselves.
Look out.
And, my 2 youngest in particular need a little help with,
And that's okay.
the kinds of things we're looking for, but I know they're going to, catch on.
They will.
And the older 2 are good at,
They will.
But we've just started doing that to try and get out of this, let's focus on it. No, look throughout the day, watch.
I like that.
What are they doing that is good and honorable and right, that we can say, hey, I
Right.
noticed that. That's
Right.
awesome.
Right.
And I mean, we only just started, so here's open and praying
I
that
know.
it does
Stick
some
with
good,
that. That is a great way to build that sense of other, you
Yeah.
know, instead of sense of self. Yeah.
And it could be
That's
something
beautiful.
Could be something as mundane as like, hey, Elijah, you did a good job drawing Mario or something.
Right,
like that,
yeah.
you know, and the other
Yeah,
person
anything,
saw that.
anything encouraging.
Hey, it
It's
works.
good. It's good.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, Tim. Thank you so much for letting me be here with you and share some of my thoughts. And thank you for sharing yours too. I think it was really helpful.
I have the gift every day to hear Ruthie's laugh, which is so wonderful. Our offices are right next to each other. Ruth, thanks for being with us. Some things I wanted to just add to this, and you can correct me. These were just things I felt like the Lord just kind of put on my heart just to maybe highlight on some of these. The eliminate unnecessary gift giving. So again, we need to step back and realize everything we're doing as parents is to make disciples, is to set them up for success for when they become adults. And we have to remember that so much of discipleship is caught, not taught. It's caught. So I'm even going through there and seeing, okay, what am I prone to do with that as an adult that they have a microscope view of every day because we share a house together. And so I think as you step back and you know, think of those things that are on the screen, ask yourself, where do I need to grow in the Lord in these things that maybe they're observing with me, or how I treat my spouse? Rachel and I do, number one, all the time. We love gift giving. Like Rachel and I are like, honey, like, I don't know, it's always either playing like flirting or just being kind to each other, but like, baby, if you cut the grass and you do this, we're going out to dinner tonight. I'm like, yeah. Or we get a babysitter. Woo! Like we're just like, and they're just kind of sitting there watching. Oh, is this how? There's nothing wrong with that. But again, if they observe that, oh, if dad cuts the grass, he gets blank. I did think for number one, not that blank. Well, it could be. I don't know. There's a.
G-rated, your kids are little.
Not what I meant. That's not what I meant. No, but I even thought with number one.
Good at cutting the grass.
Tim's grass always looks so great. Okay, number one, eliminate unnecessary gift giving. So this might be really helpful. And I was thinking of this, like in our family, we always had like a goal to work towards because the gift was something we would do together as a family. So maybe like in my mind, because I love giving gifts, when I read that, I almost get discouraged. Like, oh, I love to do this for my kids. Like I'm a briber. The kids are like, look, if we have a good day at school, ice cream for everyone. And Rachel's like, don't promise them that. Like I'm always getting.
Rachel's right.
I know. I'm a briber. I love giving gifts. I love doing things together. But there is a way that you can sanctify number one. And so our goal right now is in April. The Braves have a home opener, April 9th. Praise the Lord. But our goal is to work towards April 7th and 8th, 2 days before the home opener. We want to go to Great Wolf Lodge in Atlanta. So when we do get discouraged on, number 3, or maybe 5, you can say, okay, guys, if we're going to go to Great Wolf in April, this has to get done. But the gift, if we reach that, is together, and it's not something they're going to forget or break or not even remember. Yeah, it's an experience. So if you're a gift giver like me, maybe that's something that can encourage you and your family, something to work towards, and you can remind them. Number 2, I know this is going to sound really crazy, but I thought of this when talking to Casey. Pass on your contentedness. So obviously we know as followers of Jesus that ultimately comes from Jesus. Like that comes from them seeing us spending time in the Word. That comes from us and how we treat our spouse when we feel like we got gypped or when we're not content on, like it's stereotypical things in our home, but there's a lot of things I feel entitled to. When I come home, I want a house that's somewhat orderly. There's something smelling good in the house, food, dinner, Like, and as an adult, there are things that I can feel very non-content with if I don't get it. And Ruthie knows me. I'm like stereotypical caveman, come home, like meat and potatoes, like just say something kind to me. Can we just have a 5-second conversation? Then I'll play with the kids or whatever. But apart from that, number 2 is so interesting because once I see what Judah and Levi are watching on YouTube, number 2 to me can take on a whole new meaning. Because sometimes like what they're watching or what they're seeing and what they think is normal reality and it is not, it can give you a good perspective on what they're scrolling on and looking at on Instagram or what they're watching on YouTube. Some of the sayings or some of the attitudes, I will actually sit and watch what Judah is watching. And I used to be so dumbfounded by parents who let their kids watch things and they didn't know. I'm that parent. I'll come home and there's something new and I'm just like, okay, it must be good because it must have been Rachel approved. Maybe Rachel thought I approved it. I don't know. But then as we're walking through the living room, I'll hear things said on the TV and I'm like, what? And I'll just stand and watch it and I'm like, what is this crap? Rachel's like, I don't know. I'm like, who approved this? Like, I thought you did. No, I didn't approve this. So I don't know. So much influence can be done on social media and YouTube. When I was in high school, I didn't know I was missing parties that I wasn't invited to. Our kids now know every single thing they don't have and every single thing they miss. That can play a huge role in contentedness. Just some insight there. And then 3, make chores and family contributions mandatory. Absolutely. Try your best with this one to find something that's in their wheelhouse if you're going to do it. Like, my kids love yard work, like, oddly enough. So that is something where, yeah, like, I get it. They need to do things that they don't always like and is not in their wheelhouse. But I think you can have your cake and eat it too. So think through things that they're just naturally good at, that they can help with. And then number 4, I just wanted to share with that one, parent with natural consequences. That one's hard for me because of fear of man. So, like, I remember it was just a couple weeks ago, Judah didn't want to wear a jacket, and it was cold. I was like, buddy, you gotta wear your jacket. It's freezing. No, I don't want to wear it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Don't wear it. And I just kind of threw it back on the little thing in the garage, and he got in the car. And while we were driving to school, I was like, the teachers are going to call DSS on me. That my kid's not wearing a jacket, and what if they call me? Like, I started dealing with like, oh no, and I turned the car around, went back and got the jacket. And I thought, you wimp. Like, there should have been some, like, poor kid probably got frostbite, but like, I'm even thinking like, check your heart on where you're not allowing for to happen because of fear of man. And I know that's a hard one for me because, man, if I don't run this up to the school for Judah, then the teachers might think we're a bad family or we've neglected our kid, whatever the case may be. And then 5, stick by your rules. I think we hinted on this just a little bit, but it's okay if your rules are one set of rules for one kid and a separate set of rules for another. Like, yes, there needs to be some overall consistency, but the rules we've put on Levi are for a reason and a purpose that aren't necessarily going to get accomplished through my oldest, and it just looks different. And when they ask why, you just say, because you're not Judah, and Judah, you're not Levi. Like, that's the real world. Like, on our staff, I'm sure there's a certain set of rules for that person that's not for me, and it is what it is. And it's not my business to even worry about it, but I think it's okay. Yes, stick by the rules, but it's okay if you don't stick every kid to the same set of rules. I think that's okay to be kind of led by the Spirit there. So I'm going to pass out this CPYU parent page to you guys. Casey, will you grab this stack of that on the soundboard and just pass those out for me? I would love, and you've got this handout too. Take time to go through this because this is really, really good. It kind of gives you a good gauge on where you're at when it comes to disciplining our kids. I love at the bottom the no's in discipline. Like, no. This is where, like, I don't spank out of anger. Like, I'm not a spanker. And It's just not me. It's not my parenting style. But the no's, I feel like were made for Tim Wadsworth, because I'm not gonna hit you with my hand or spank you with a spoon, but I'm definitely gonna shame you. Like, I'm gonna embarrass you. That's the third one. Like, oh, baby Judah, do you need help with that? Maybe you should have listened to Dad. Like, like, you know, like, I'm gonna shame you, and you should have listened to me. Like, so yeah, the first page kind of goes through like, okay, why are we disciplining? You know, whether it's if we're spanking while we're angry, or disappointment, or just disciplining with whatever reason in mind. I do think the no's on the next page are so good just to go through and think through. Now, obviously, abuse your child. Like that's a little extreme, but we can think through ways that we can abuse that aren't your stereotypical, like physical abuse or verbal abuse. But that word abuse would just mean you are taking it too far. You've crossed the line. But those first three are big for me. Shame your child, pressure your child, embarrass your child. Embarrass your child is a big one for me. And I think I just grew up in a household where we just mocked and made fun of each other all the time. And so the apple didn't fall far from the tree for me, from my family. And so I tend to really lean on that. And so this was just good food for thought that knows. Like, we're not going to do this when we discipline. And what's the opposite of shaming? The opposite of pressure? The opposite of embarrassment? I think that's just good for us. Like, yeah, that for a lot of us, we know that we don't do that. But if we're all being honest and vulnerable, maybe this could be somewhere in there for us. But this is really good stuff to go through. And then I just want to give you guys a challenge this month. In the CPYU for the month of February, Walt Mueller, the guy that puts this out, is a really good friend of Peter Hubbard. And so I've just been really trying to kind of go through this and just read up on the wisdom that Walt has to offer. Go ahead and read this and just kind of get familiar of some of the stuff that he's talking about in here. But on page 3, you'll see that there's a prayer for our teens. And when I was reading this a couple weeks ago, I just started to get super emotional while reading this. And I have been dedicated to praying this over the teens of our youth group. And I would encourage you guys to do 2 things with this. As a married couple, pray this together out loud. Rachel and I, the last month or so, a lot of the pastors on staff, we are encouraging each other to pray with our wives. It's really interesting how, like, what I do for a living and how long I've been following Jesus, and I've been married for 12, 13 years, and how much we just don't pray together. It's really kind of bizarre if you think about it. And when I do, I feel weird. Or I felt kind of odd. It's like, well, your wife knows, or your spouse knows you so raw. Sometimes it's tough to let your guard down when they know you're junk. But Rachel and I have been praying this together right before we go to bed out loud. And it's just been so powerful. So I just want to challenge you guys to be dedicated for maybe the first couple weeks of March. Just pray the same thing and to do it together and to do it out loud. And I think this could be really powerful for your kids. Praying this over your teens. You can feel free to pray this over the entire youth group, but specifically pray this over your teenager. And not only will it grow you together with your spouse, but I think these words are just so powerful. And every time I read it, it's almost been like scripture. Something fresh and new has just popped off the page, where I focused on that, and there was something different I focused on last month. But you've got those 2 resources. We'll make this video and these slides available sometime this week. But is there any, I kind of want to get better at ending our time, the last few minutes, just to see if there's any questions you guys have, whether it's just in general, or about our youth group, or about our programming. The 3 things that we want to do is connect you with each other encourage you with outside voices, and then also inform you with what's going on in culture, but also inform you with what's going on in our youth group. So whether that's giving a quick recap of the winter retreat or just things that we notice, whether it's the music we listen to. However, we also want this to become a forum where we can ask questions, and I'm not saying you guys do, but I kind of want to get into the rhythm of ending family huddles with, hey, Tim, why do we do this in youth group? Or have we ever considered doing this? Or the floor's open. Is there any questions or any concerns or any thoughts on y'all's end? Yeah.
So when I was in high school, I loved to listen to Nirvana. And I related to the teenage angst of that, which is weird because like I have a normal family, you know, wasn't like a lot of trauma and drama in there. So, but my boy likes Juice WRLD for the same reasons. He feels like it helps him. He listens to it because he relates to it. Having listened to the lyrics too, as you know, as a guy who loves music and understands like what he's like feeling, that's probably what I worry about. Like I haven't checked the list, but do those other people who are making the same kind of music carry the same kind of emotional camaraderie?
Like thought-provoking stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, good question.
Yet, so, but do you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of. I hated Christian music growing up because it was all like.
Don't you attack Michael W. Smith.
It was, you know, like if it wasn't him, it's Chris Tomlin. It's like, come on, guys, like let's do something mean and.
I'm with you.
And those guys do great stuff. I'm not dogging them. I'm just saying, as a teenager, it was like, oh, could we get something weaker?
I'm with you. Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, okay, I want to give him stuff, and so I've been channeling like Andy Mineo.
Good.
He's not angry,
No.
right? You know, like, or Lecrae's got some stuff.
Yeah.
There's some underground guys that do some good stuff. That
Good,
has
yeah.
some of that masculine energy to it, I
Yep.
guess. But
The first one that just came to mind was a rapper called KJ52.
okay.
We actually had him here like 3 or 4 lift tours ago.
Okay. Yeah.
He's I'm a late 90s kid. We would say dope. He was dope. But you can check him out. But I'll do some research for you.
That's I mean, and I love that you're giving us this to compare because
Yeah.
I don't have a comparison because I thought the Christian scene was just weak.
Yeah.
So, but like, look,
I grew up to Rich Mullins.
oh, but I like him now, but at the time I was like, oh, dude.
I'm with you. Yeah. No, and I don't know if you guys know a big part of my story, but when I graduated from high school, I signed with a record company, traveled for many, many years as a studio drummer. So that music's right up my alley. I'll definitely start researching that and finding something comparable. I know, like, I'm even thinking, like, the guy from Switchfoot, John Foreman, has started kind of a side project, and he's just a thought-provoking, lyrically just, it's not just you're a good father over and over again, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there is some depth and good conversations, and I think you can. So I'm going to step back and say, it's different strokes for different folks. I think if your boy is going to listen to Juice WRLD, that I would just make sure to have intentional conversations.
Yeah, our conversation has been about, I understand you're relating to it,
Yep.
but talk to me about how it
Good.
encourages your soul or helps you respect and love your mother.
And we can do that with movies. Like I've heard people ask, is there anything like a Harry Potter in the Christian world? I'm like, no, Christian movies are just terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Like I watched, what was it? I can't remember. Our God's Not Dead or God's Not Dead, which was great, but I'm just sitting there like, oh, good grief. But I think if you watch those videos with them, as they get older, you can start having like adult conversations, and you can really, you can learn a lot. Like I would ask our kids, like, what do you like about this? And they were real raw, and they would say, this and that, and you're like, okay, but it's almost, you ask the 5 whys. So I'm a huge Dave Ramsey guy. Most people either love him or hate him, but he has a Ramsey personality called Anthony O'Neill, and he wrote a book called Debt Free Degree. So I've been reading it to see if we want to start giving it to our juniors in high school to start reading Debt Free Degree, because it's brilliant. You normally start making terrible financial decisions around junior, senior year. And in the book, it starts with you ask the 5 whys. Like, why do you want to be financially secure? And they give the answer. Why do you want that? They give the answer. Well, then why do you, and it's interesting, you can boil down what's really going on in your heart with the 5 whys. So I would almost step back and put that in with questions with music. Step back and get your inner 3-year-old and just keep asking why. Like, I think there's something annoying when our kids do it, but I think there's a lot we can take from that as adults and go, why? Well, Dad, it makes me feel cool. Well, why do you want to feel cool? Well, because if I'm cool, then I'll be accepted. Why do you need to feel accepted? Like, you see what you're doing? Like, you'll get to where it's like, But I think you can capitalize. Like, as a drummer growing up, I'm with you. Rich Mullins could only take me so far with learning, good beats. And so I used to have to listen to like Rage Against the Machine, Matchbox 20, Limp Bizkit, like some of these guys who are just like, but my teachers would tell me to listen to them because you got to do what they're doing if you want to make it. But then I would listen to these lyrics, but my parents were kind of with me there to ask those whys. But I'll start doing some research and figuring that out.
We're having it's good. I mean, those are good encouragements because we're having those conversations.
Good.
It's just getting to that. And part of it has been like learning that he's feeling rejected about things. And this is something that
It's an avenue.
brings a consolation. But then it's kind of like when we were talking about Ricky, like we have these conversations and intellectually and like theologically, he's like, yeah, that's great. Like emotionally, it's like,
It's a form of escape sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's good. To be continued. Anything else? Whether it's something like that or just anything in general? Good. And you haven't missed your window. I mean, the door is open all the time. I think it can create healthy dialogue. And, if there are parents who want to voice something and they haven't done it, the Huddle's the place where they can have that avenue to do it. So, yes, sir.
Just comment that I get all over with some of the Christian movies and music and so on. Sometimes I'm kind of roll my eyes too, but I find my kids like it. Cool, right? Like I don't want to slip that in there and like deter them. Oh, that's kind of must be cool. So I'm sure there's a balance of a full spectrum of kids and youth group, and I'm careful of that, right?
No doubt.
Shoot that as well.
Yep. No, that's so good. I mean, especially I think if you're looking at me, the level of influence I have on our kids will be different than I think who's in this room. I tend to do that indirectly with my own children. Like if I think they're watching something that's not fit for a 6-year-old, it should be for like a 3-year-old, I'll say something and Rachel will correct me, quickly condemn it. Or, again, my love language is to poke fun or to embarrass people. It should be. So no, I'm so with you. Especially with whatever your level of influence is to make fun of something or put something down from stage or in a group of people or whatever, it can be really hurtful. It's good. Yes, sir.
Well, I just had something I wanted to share with the group, but it's related to number 4, and about this one. Another brother actually encouraged me, and I thought, that's a good idea. So I tried it. Number 4, parents with natural consequences. We had an issue where, older 2 would not take out the trash can every Thursday, so the dump truck would pick it up on Friday, right? Or not the dump truck, the garbage truck. Pick it up every Friday, right?
We can't go 2 weeks.
So we have, long story short, we have a little dumping station about a mile away from our house. So we decided, with the encouragement from another brother, I said, that's a good idea. So we decided to do it with the two. Well, we're gonna take this trash can, we're gonna walk to that little dumping station. And that was about 4, 5, 6 months
They
ago.
have not forgotten to take the
They have not
trash to
forgotten
the
to take it
road
out.
on Thursday.
Since. And I think that's a natural,
We can't go 2
That's
weeks
the way
without
to
our
deal with
trash
it.
being picked up. There's 6 of us.
of course, they'll walk with them to the dumping back, but yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So, I'm terrible. Our trash goes out early Monday morning. And I'm like, I don't think they do this for me on Sunday. When I get the entitlement, like, should the family just come together, put the trash out? It's 9:30. I don't want to put the trash out.
Don't forget when you get home.
Oh, believe me, there'll be notes from me. Well, we love you guys. Thank you so much. This is actually fun news. So in March, we will not gather the last Sunday in March. We'll gather the second to last. And we have Rich Brown, who will be with us, who is my youth professor at Liberty University. He's coming down and he's teaching at some conference in Easton. And he was like, hey, do you want to get dinner Sunday night? And I'm like, no, that's actually when our youth group meets. And I was like, but what are you doing Sunday night? So we're having like the best of the best come and talk to us in March. And we're really excited. We're also going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We're going to move our leaders meeting to that same Sunday so he can talk to our leadership team and be here for our family huddle next month. So we're going to actually give him the entire time. He is one of the greatest minds in student ministry and working with teenagers. He's going to do it all for free. He was so excited that we do these types of things that he was like, no, I want to come. So help us spread the word that we'll have Professor Rich from Liberty with us. And very, very excited for that. So I'll pray for us and then we'll be done. We've got 5 more minutes and your kiddos will be ready. So God, we are so grateful just to gather for another month. Lord, thank you for Ruthie. Thank you for her time and energy. She didn't have to do this, but she willingly did it and happily did it. And I was blessed by what she had to share and was encouraged. God, I pray that you help us take 1 or 2 things, practical things, that we can do to love our family well. When the rubber hits the road tomorrow morning when we're getting up and getting ready for school, it's 6 in the morning. God, would you just put extra fuel in our tank to love our families well, to disciple and steward these great gifts that you've given to us in children. And where Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy, God, I'm so grateful that your son Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. God, I'm encouraged by this time. This was truly iron sharpening iron. God, I pray that you grow this group. Lord, that you would make this something that parents look forward to and that they see as a priority. And God, that you would just use these huddles, God, to not only encourage us as parents, but to make us better followers and disciples of you and your Son, in Jesus. And so, God, I'm just grateful for this time. Lord, I pray that the middle schoolers and high schoolers that were here tonight, that it was a profitable time for them, that you grow them together in relationships with each other and with their life group leaders. And God, that you help us not to forget the words of Joe LaPena from January Huddle, that every day is a marvel, and help us not to waste these marvels and this precious time. Before we know it, our kids will be grown and old and out of the house. And God, help us to capitalize on this time and to live in the present. For your glory and for your name, God, we love these families that are represented in this room. I pray that you put your protective angels around them and give them wisdom. God, that you give them a sense of confidence as their parents. You have given them everything they need for life and godliness, yes, but to also, God, you handpick these kids for them. When you give us the confidence that you know what you're doing, you are a sovereign God who's in control, and we receive that as a good gift. So we love you. We commit this time to you. All God's people said, amen. Thank you, guys. See you next month.